Gonzalez was asking for a passcode. So did you send her?
I sent an email out to everyone who had registered.
Okay, and here she comes.
Yep.
She's here now. Right. Right. Right.
We'll get that figured out.
Yeah, no worries. We're ready to go. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. We're going to give people one more minute because we had a little bit of a hiccup. Oh, now, Jen, how did you get that passcode? Right.
John emailed it.
Brilliant. So in one more minute, we'll start. I know a number of people will have to leave during the course of the 90-minute session, and John is recording this, so the session will be available if you cannot stay for the entirety. So welcome, and again, and thank you for taking time out of your Tuesday that feels like a Monday morning to join us for a discussion concerning the development of course outlines to be considered for the diversity, identity, and social justice in the United States category. We're imagining that this session will both be interactive and the first of a series of opportunities for folks to get together to share the work that is ongoing as they are developing course outlines. This morning, as a foundation, what we want to do is just highlight where you can find information regarding courses and submission guidelines, and then I'm going to talk and Rick's going to talk first about the work that the history department did in order to create a course that was approved in the category, and then I'll talk about a Native American literature course that will be approved in the category. It is my hope that we being the Gen Ed Council will receive a great number of courses over the course of the summer, so that we can populate the category with as rich and robust a selection of offerings as possible. I'm very, very poor at watching the chat, but I've now opened it so that if people have questions and you can post them there, and I'll try to speak to them as well.
I got your back, Chris. Don't worry about it.
Thank you very much, Rodman. All right, then the first thing I'm going to do is just remind you by sharing my screen that, or at least attempting to share my screen, where you can go to get information concerning course submission guidelines. And if you can see my screen now, you're going to see the general education page. All right, and the critical links are the Diversity, Identity, and Social Justice in the United States Course Submission Guidelines. There's a clever title, followed by the DISJ in the United States FAQ. All right, and then I would also look at the course submissions guidelines in general. All right, now I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm just going to highlight the right elements of what you'll find here and here. All right, in the FAQ and in this the category specific guidelines. Right. What we want to remind people that the primary focus of the course has to be on diversity, identity, and social justice in the United States. That is to say, or to say it another way, diversity, identity, and social justice in the U.S. must be foundational to and a focus of the course. And that's been true from the get-go. You'll find that in the FAQ. Also in FAQ, if you have any questions, we are aligning with SUNY systems definition of diversity and adopting a social identity-based definition. And you can find information, again, in that FAQ to what SUNY means by that. I could also direct you to a number of different URLs, including one from Northwestern University Cyril Center for Advanced Teaching and Learning, that also can articulate quite nicely, it seems to me, what is meant by a social identity-based definition of diversity. I want to remind you that approved courses can be either lower or upper division. We encourage both, we being the institution. In keeping with long-standing practice, we want to remind you as well that prerequisites, all right, if any, must be themselves approved general education offerings. All right. For example, right, in English 347, if it had as a prerequisite an earlier English course like English 204, writing about literature, all right, that course is just fine because writing about literature is an approved humanities course. But what we want to avoid is hidden or additional course credit hours, right, needed in order to meet category, in order to meet one's general education. So, all right, it's not a problem to have prerequisites, just make sure. So for instance, if you have a sociology course that you're going to put forward in the category that, and you have social 100, introduction to sociology, that is fine because that is a prerequisite in the category of social and behavioral sciences. Remember too, that a course in the diversity, identity, and social justice in the United States category may also be approved in a second category. Sandy can't get in. Sorry, that was an aside. And that is also in keeping with long-standing practice, although we don't see it very, very often. Remember, however, that the students, and we'll have to, this will be on us, all of us as advisors, all right, and faculty members and professional staff and administrators, to remind students that you can't double dip. A course can't count both in one category of general education and that same course in another category as well, for the purposes of an individual student's general education requirement. The other thing to bear in mind, and this is just, it doesn't bother me, right? And I would hope it wouldn't bother you, but remember that if you've got a course that's approved in 2 general education categories, it could well be that you're assessing the course for the purposes of, oh, let's say world awareness one calendar year, and then the next calendar year be assessing it in terms of diversity, identity, and social justice. So just be cognizant that you may be doing assessment a bit more regularly than you thought. Again, this is not to shy you away from having a course count in more than one category. It's just a sort of reminder that there will be a bit of extra work. Two other points. I'm sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. 2 other points. One, as is true with all other general education courses, make sure, all right, that when it comes to diversity, identity, and social justice in the United States, all right, that the course is rooted in or grounded in the diversity, identity, equity, inclusion, and social justice scholarship in the appropriate disciplinary or interdisciplinary area. And that's one of the reasons why we like to see, and in fact need to see, the works cited or bibliography, so that we can see that the course is grounded in scholarship. That's true no matter the category. More importantly, that working bibliography for your particular course might be helpful to somebody else who's also in the social and behavioral sciences field or humanities field, to see where your course, all right, that you put forward is turning, all right, for to help ground the knowledge that you want to pass on to your students. The next thing, and this is really, really, but it's all important, but the next thing I would say is and this is again true not just of this category, but all categories, and there are members of the council here and they can speak to it. All right, when you're developing your course outlines, all right, and submitting them to the council, one of the things the council looks for is to see that there are clear through lines, all right, from linking throughout the course outline that are going to make clear and explicit how the learning outcomes in a particular category are going to be met, right? So if you articulate the learning outcomes in the course outline, then in the justification section, let's say, for why you're offering this course, all right, then showing in the outline section of the course outline, all right, how those learning outcomes are going to be spoken to and the students will be able to meet them will be critical. The course submissions cover memo will also speak to that, but don't simply leave that information in the cover memo, because the council doesn't approve cover memos, it approves course outlines. You can submit a syllabus if you would like, but again, that can't be the whole or the critical element of the submission, because syllabi change from semester to semester. All right, course outlines, all right, remain constant or until such time as they're revised and resubmitted. Now that's just particular nuts and bolts. Does anybody have any questions about anything I've said, or would anybody from the council like to add anything that I've missed?
Hi, Chris. That bit about the course outlines, I just need greater clarification in terms of where you want, or where the committee wants to see how the outcomes will, or how the course the learning outcomes will be met. Should it be in the course outline section? You mentioned 3 sections. You mentioned the cover letter, you mentioned course outline section, and then you mentioned another section. So yeah, exactly where do you want to see where the course outcomes will be met? I mean, that the articulation of that.
Yep, that's a very good question. What I'm going to do, and at least I'm going to try to do, hang on a second, is I'm going to try to, no, I'm not. Yeah, I am. I'm going to try to share my screen. And I don't know. Do you see this? Do you now see a PDF document?
Yeah, we see it, Chris.
Okay, all right. And all I'm going to do, and Pat, and I'm just going to do this very quickly because I'm going to return to this to English 347 after we hear from Rick and History 202. But let's see now. Can you see this? Can you see this course outline? All right, all right. All right. So in the justification, we articulate, here are the learning outcomes that are going to be spoken to. This course is already approved as world awareness. I'll return to that later. All right, all right. But we also wanted it to be approved in diversity, identity, in social justice in the United States. All right. So as part of the justification for the course, we say, what part of the justification is we want our students to learn these things. All right. So we put the learning outcomes in this particular case right in the justification. And then in the objectives, all right, we say, all right, as a result of all this prose, what's going to go on, all right, we're going to be able to show, students can be able to demonstrate that they have an understanding of diversity, identity, and social justice in the United States, both learning outcomes, all right. And then, and this is a different course outline from some you might see, right, which is why we're going to see Rick's as well from History 202. Then we reinforce that, all right, when we say, no matter what, right, we're going to see here, here, here. So that's a long way to say, Pat, all right, ideally, it's articulated in justification, right? It's reinforced in the objectives and in the course outline section of the course outline. And that's what the council means when it says we want to see through lines, all right, so that we see, all right, a link between justification to objectives to the outline section of the outline. Does that help, or is that confound things?
Both, but I see what you're saying.
Right. Okay. All right. Other questions before we're going to turn to the history 2 course outline? Because what we
You got
wanted
a
to
hand up, Chris.
go
you got
ahead.
a
I'm
hand
sorry.
up.
Who's got a hand up? I don't see it.
I just had
Sarah.
a quick question. I'm designing
Sarah.
a brand new first year seminar, first year signature course,
Mhm.
and it's not on the books yet. But I want to design it like from the ground up so it meets this gen ed requirement. Is there an order I need to go in terms of getting the course through faculty approval and then through gen ed approval, or can I just submit the gen ed requirement before I submit the course? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And that's a very good question too, Sarah. And I'm sorry I didn't see your hand.
Okay.
The council's practice is that we will review courses that are submitted concurrently to UCC for approval. You just have to let us know that this course, all right, is a new course and it's also going to UCC. All right. If the Gen Ed Council gets ahead of UCC, we're going to say this approval, assuming it's approved, all right, it will be contingent upon UCC also, approving the course. If for some reason UCC didn't approve the course, we could, all right, offer it one time provisional approval for the purposes of Gen Ed. But we don't want to get so far ahead of each other, UCC and Gen Ed Council, that we create a mess. All right. So concurrent submissions are just fine. Just let us know. All right. And then we'll work with UCC to make sure that lines of communication are open so that they can say, yes, we've approved this course if we're ahead of them. But we're not going to wait on that approval. All right. Does that answer your question?
I think so. So if I have first years in that course and they can still get the gen ed credit in December when it ends, right? On their transcript or however that works. I'm putting it through in the fall, or can I just put it through anytime?
Well, she can't really put it through any time. What it's a good question. Ideally, if you put it through in the summer and the council approved it, the UCC, I don't know if UCC does work in the summer. I can't speak to that. Right. All right. But the council is hoping to meet periodically over the summer to approve course outlines in this category,
Okay.
approve courses, excuse me, in this category. But let's say that the approval doesn't happen till October. We can make that approval effective fall 21.
Okay.
But you got to be careful here, right? We can't tell our students, oh, well, it's in the process, it'll count, right? Because it might not get approved, right? So just so sooner to get to us, the better.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Welcome, Sarah.
Hey, Chris, Sandy here. Can I ask
hi,
a
Sandy.
question?
Mhm.
Having just gone through gen ed a lot this past year, I just want to clarify, because I want to submit a couple courses for diversity. You want to see the learning objective in the outline, in the content outline, in the justification, in the cover memo, but you're not asking to see it in the evaluation or the assignments. And I realize assignments and evaluation might be more particular in a syllabus, but the reality is that's where we're sort of showing that students have to demonstrate evidence of having completed those objectives, but you're saying it doesn't have to show up there. Am I correct on that?
Well, that's a very good question. I'm just looking down here. In the standard Gen Ed, all right, building on UCC's course submission guidelines template, there is a course requirements section and a means evaluation. So that has to be there, but particular assignments, all right, a prompt, let's say, right, here's what we're going to ask them to write, or here's the type of questions they're going to need to respond to in an exam, all right, has never been considered necessary for the course outline. Where it shows up is in the assessment plan update when you get ready to assess it. Right now, right, you raise an interesting question. We've never asked to see examples of assignments, we being the Gen Ed Council, at least in the time I've been here. Other Gen Ed councils, all right, that I'm aware of have asked for that. We've never done it. We say, show us an example of the prompts in the assessment plan update. Go ahead, Pat.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. Go ahead, Pat.
Chris, related to Sarah's question, because both of us are teaching signature courses, and the course number is a general course number that's used for all the signature courses, 198. And so in terms of submitting these unique courses to apply to such that they can be used for the GE requirement, the UCC, I mean, the course number, the 198 is already approved for this category of courses. So how does that work, with the signature courses?
What I'm hoping is that with as little mess and fuss as possible, I have to work with, Julie and I have talked about this, and Ramin has joined in that conversation to, well, at least he's been privy to my take on it. Yeah, I think what we're going to have to do, because we can't, we're going to have to give 198 first year seminar or courses. We're going to have to give it a different designation, right? All right. I don't know if that means creating a new number. Right. All right. But in the same way, we can't say, okay, anthropology 300 or English 399. I'll do that because I know that English 399 or the catch-all number for special topics courses. Not all special topics are going to be approved in this category. Similarly, not all of the first choice courses or freshman signature courses, all right, are going to be approved in this category. So they can't be numbered 195, right? We've got to figure out something else to do, right, to make sure that confusion is averted. But that's for us to do. It's not for you all to think about as you think about developing the courses to meet this category. Hot dog. All right. Then why don't I turn it to Rick if there aren't any other questions right now. All right. And Rick can just talk a bit about the work that he and his colleagues in the history department whose focus is American history, the work they did to refine, revise the History 202 course outline, all right, for approval in this new category.
Hi, hi everyone. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Rich Waying from the history department. To be honest, our incoming chair, Frank Byrne, really did the lion's share of the work on this. And so I was kind of helping out in an ancillary role, but I can give you some sense of what we did. Keeping in mind, of course, that I imagine this is going to vary quite a bit by discipline. So I don't know how, the substance of this, how much it's going to help, but basically with history, I mean, part of the easy thing with history is that in the last 50 years, the discipline has shifted so much that most survey courses like History 202 kind of already did the work that was being asked of the category. So themes about identity and power and exploitation and the legacies of those things are kind of staples, I would say, in the survey already. It'd be hard to find a textbook now designed for this course that didn't already really significantly address those. So I think a lot of what we did, to be honest, is really just sort of make more explicit in the materials we submitted how those issues were being addressed. So under this category of sort of social identity, we just emphasized questions about power and inequality. Historical agency was another major theme that we wanted to address for both individuals and groups, obviously highlighting groups that had been marginalized or sort of written out of history after the fact. And then finally, just sort of the legacies of these issues and how they've sort of resonated into the present. So really just to sum it up, I mean, what made our materials compelling to get through the gauntlet here is in that course outline, we were very detailed, but also kind of tried to hang those themes on sort of 3 concrete subjects, which were basically sort of the period of the American Revolution, the period of sort of national expansion after the Revolution, and then the Civil War itself. So we were able to kind of show, and maybe Chris can speak to this, kind of show in very concrete ways how we were going to use those histories to address these broader themes of the category. So I'll leave it at that without droning on anymore. But if there are more specific questions about how we did it, I'm happy to answer them.
And I've shared, I hope, the History 2 revised course outline, and again, right. In the justification, they note see objectives to see a fuller articulation of, again, here's how it's going to meet the American history learning outcome, such as it was or currently is, all right, 1 and 2, right, and then, right, the diversity, identity, and social justice in the United States outcomes, right, 1 and 2, and then in the course outline, right, highlight, right, in a wonderfully Catholic way, right, how at certain moments in the survey they're going to be able to connect, right, what they're talking about to the learning outcomes.
So Chris, Sandy, I just wanted to jump in again. I put 5 courses through UCC and some through Gen Ed this past year. And I would love Gen Ed Council and UCC to communicate a little bit more, because 5 years ago, UCC wanted more course content like we're seeing in front of us right now on that screen. And this year, I had course content like this and they're like, oh, way too much, cut it down, cut it down, cut it down. So there's a bit of a disconnect between UCC and Gen Ed Council when you're putting an official course outline through the system of governance. And I think there needs to be some communication as people, especially developing new courses for this, because, we're trying to show in our course content of the official course outline that we are addressing a lot of these issues around diversity and social justice, yet UCC is like, oh, we don't need all that, cut it way down. I was, you're hearing my frustration a little bit, because they said, you don't need that much content, that's the instructor's prerogative. I'm like, well, no, this content is meeting a certain requirement, whether it's writing, the writing course or the diversity course, and there has to be certain content that is consistent no matter who teaches it. So I worry a little bit that there's a bit of a disconnect with UCC and Gen Ed Council when putting courses through, that we need to have a lot of specifics for Gen Ed, certain, whether it's writing or critical thinking or computer information literacy and now diversity, and or UCC says, oh, cut it down and just kind of have the big ideas. So just something to think about and other people to think about if you're going through the process from start to finish.
Thank
you
you,
might bump
Sandy.
into.
and as Sandy knows, and I'm sure others have as well, who submitted courses to General Education Council, and I hope you can see I've highlighted the course submission guidelines for general education. All right. This makes clear that while UCC merely suggests there be an outline as part of the submission, right, the council requires it, right, in order that the council can see how the objectives of the course are to be realized over its course, right? All right, and then right here highlights, right, why, again, reinforces why that is the case, right? UCC has decided some time ago to go with a streamlined version, right, of their submission, and took out that course outline section, right? And far be it from me to say, UCC, you've got to do it this way, all right, any more than UCC would say to Gen Ed Council, you've got to do it this way, all right? But given that UCC, and I this is not to cast aspersions on UCC by any stretch of imagination, all right, UCCA is not, doesn't have to worry about assessment of student learning. All right. The Gen Ed Council does, right. In order to help us make sure that the faculty are going to be best positioned to assess student learning vis-a-vis the general education learning outcomes, all right, the council has determined it's important to have this course outline section within course outline. I'm gonna try to go back. I'm sorry. I'm
And
trying to-
I agree with you, Chris. However, this is the official course outline that has to then move forward to FA. So you have this, am I giving the, I've even labeled them. Here's the UCC version. Here's the one for Gen Ed version. We shouldn't be doing that as a campus, because one official course outline is going to go forward, and that's going to drive and direct what that course is always going to be about. So that's why I just keep thinking there needs to be some communication between those two groups.
I hear you. It makes sense. Right. Other questions about what Rick had shared with Rich? I'm sorry, I'm such an idiot. All right, Rich shared with us earlier. Sorry, Rich.
I should just add that we did this kind of by committee, which might be useful to people, is that it was Frank Byrne, Ken Marshall, and I kind of were able to chime in with our different areas of expertise to kind of fill out what needed to be put in there. So if that might have been one of the reasons why it was successful going through, is it was sort of a collaborative effort.
Yep. Other I'm going to stop sharing just so I can see everybody. Other questions about the History 202 course outline or the process? And again, you have access to it by simply clicking on links on the Gen Ed page. But right. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you and talk for a bit about the English 347, and just by way of background, this course was approved starting in 2012 in the category of world awareness humanities. All right, and am I going to be able to do this? Sure I am. Hang on a second. I'm going to stop sharing. And I'm going to start sharing. So exciting. All right. And I hope you see English 347 course outline. This is the course outline from 2012. All right. And the reason I'm sharing it is because, no, I'm sorry, I'm not. I apologize. Something's not gone. Why did that not work?
Chris, I see English 347 course outline, original 2012. Is that
Oh,
what you're
good.
trying to
Okay,
share?
good. All right, good. I'm just, it's the nut behind the wheel as always. I apologize.
Can you make it a little bigger though, Chris? Like it's,
Oh boy, you're putting a lot of pressure on me now. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay. And the reason I bring this up is because this was submitted for approval and was approved and is approved in the World Awareness Humanities offering or category. And as a consequence, not only does it focus on peoples and nations and cultures and worldviews that are outside or other than the West, right? The indigenous people of North America, right? But, right, because it's in the humanities subgroup, all right, it also speaks to the humanities learning outcome, knowledge of the conventions and methods of one of the humanities. As a consequence of that, right, the course right from the get-go, and now I'm going to stop sharing and start sharing again, right? As a consequence of that, right, while from the get-go, right, the course could speak to the second of the two diversity, identity, and social justice in the United States category. That is to say, all right, demonstrate an understanding of how one or more marginalized groups in the United States construct and maintain multidimensional individual and group identities and their underpinning worldviews. All right. It gave short shrift, all right, to the first learning outcome. Right. Which is to say, all right, while focusing on authorship, right, it was not explicitly highlighting issues of authority, systemic racism, and issues of social justice. All right. And as a consequence, right, what the revised course outline, I'm sorry, I'm trying to move between two different screens. All right. What it had to do was make clear in the outline what was going on in the course, but it was not yet explicit because it was speaking to only the world awareness learning outcomes. Right. So as was true with History 202, right, and Rich, all right, I hope I'm not misspeaking. History 202, it was clear that the first learning outcome in the category, right, was being met, right, all right, and we had but it was not yet explicit in the course outline how the second diversity, identity, and social justice in the United States category was being met. All right. And therefore, the council asked for revision and resubmission. All right. The converse was true with English 347. Right. It was clear that the second learning outcome in the new category was being met. It was not yet clear from the course outline that the first was. So again, right, it was we asked for resubmission. And the reason, revision and resubmission, the reason we did that, or I'm sharing this, is to remind you that both learning outcomes, right, need to be addressed in the course outline, and therefore, touch wood, in the course itself. Right. And then to go to Sandy's earlier point, here you'll see, it's very, very general, exams and essays, all right, but nothing particular in terms of the prompt. We see that in the assessment plan updates. Right. Stop sharing. Right. I'm going to stop sharing. Right. And then the other thing that I want to add is that one of the nice things about History 2 and 347 as our first models, and they're not going to be our only models. As soon as we get other courses approved, we're going to be sharing them with everyone, of course. All right. But it gives us a lower division course and an upper division course. It also gives us, all right, a course that is of a survey nature, all right, 202, and of course 347 that is more specialized, right? There is no one size fits all in terms of the course outline, right? We need to see the learning outcomes, right, in the course outlines, and we need to see the through lines throughout the course outlines to help us know that the learning outcomes are to help us help us, but more importantly, you know that when you hand that course outline to a new faculty member, they're going to see, okay, here's some of the ways in which I can make sure that this is realized over the course of my course. All right. All right. So there's no one size fits all beyond that. All right. All right. As long as it's clear that the outcomes are met, all right, that the course is grounded in the scholarship, germane to the particular knowledge domain and category. All right, all right. And finally, all right, that these are just models, all right, and the council is there to help you with your course outlines. At the same time, remember that there are diversity, equity, and inclusion working groups, all right, in / committees in the colleges, right? So you can turn there as well, right, for help with developing courses. Okay. We've got about 5 or 7 minutes before we are to be done. I would like to encourage questions and thoughts, please, again, and thank you for those who have already offered them. And then I also then want us to make sure we have time to talk for a minute or 3 about how you think we can best help you throughout the course of the summer, whether it's having set meeting times where people can come together and workshop course outlines, or whether you want to submit stuff right at certain times, but not actually be something that needs to be synchronous. But before we get there, thoughts, questions, things that are troubling or concerning regarding developing course outlines that can be approved in this category, this critically important category.
Hi, Chris. Just generally, what is the timeline for getting courses that are already up for the fall approved for this requirement?
That's a very, very good question, Pat. In the past, the council has, once it approved a course in a semester, if that course was being offered, right, we said that the approval is effective beginning that semester, right? So what I would say is get the course outlines to us as soon as you can, right? So that particularly if it's going to need revision, both 347 and 202 needed revision and resubmission. And I'm not saying that all courses have to be that way, but this is a trick. But just to be on the safe side, the sooner we can get it, we can either approve it or say, here's what we still need to see. But let's say it turns out it doesn't get approved till October, right? We can still, if it does get approved, all right, and this in a way gets back to Sarah's point, all right, it will count for a student taking it during that semester. We can do that, all right? It becomes a mess if, for the registrar, if the semester's ended and grades are rolled. The council, once the semester begins, meets bi-weekly, starting the second week of the fall semester. And it's our hope, or it's my hope, and the council, I hope, hopes that we'll be able to meet at least once in June, once in July, and once in August if there are course outlines, all right, for us to attend to. And I know we've got two because our friend Michael, all right, has sent us NAS 100, all right, and Anthropology 375 just the end of last week. Okay,
Chris, can I ask another quick question that's probably really basic?
go ahead, Sam.
Where do we submit our proposal and our outline?
That's a very good question. Send them to me, and then what I do is I then send them out to the council.
Okay, thanks.
Right. And again, I can't stress this enough. Feel free also to work with the DEI committees, right, in School of Business, School of Education, School of Communication, Media and Arts, and the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, right? We have representatives of those groups here with us today, all right, and they can be helpful. Take advantage of any workshopping opportunities, and this gets to my second point, or the thing I mentioned earlier, is how can we help you, we being the council, and this summer, all right.
Can I jump in
Go
for a
ahead,
second?
John.
One of the
Take it away.
reasons I suggested this workshop is just to find exactly what Chris is talking about, some way of supporting each other. And there were three options we had talked about. We only have about 2 minutes left. And the options we talked about is, if you'd like, we could put together a Blackboard community or a Blackboard folder and discussion board in the SELT website, or we could put together a Slack channel, or we could set up regular meetings however often people wanted to. So we'd like to get some feedback on whether the people developing courses for this would find it helpful to communicate in one of those ways, perhaps to make the workload a little bit easier and to share thoughts and ideas.
Yes. Yeah. And so maybe as part of it takes a couple, 3 or 5 minutes before you go to the next meeting, all right, that the next workshop that John has created for us, to just say, here's what I think would work, or what would work best for me, and then we'll try to get a sense of, all right, how can we move forward? All right. The last thing I'll say before I say, does anybody have a last word, is Sandy's exactly right in the chat. All right. New courses do have to go through governance. I'm talking about in particular, all right, how courses need to move through general education. But Sandy's right. Right. You're right. You can't just, as an individual faculty member, submit a course. It's got to go through your department or your program. Right. All right. Because that's just critical. We can't, it's not the Wild West out there. All right. All right. Emily, that's a good question. We haven't set the July and August meetings yet. My hunch is we'll probably have them early, right? Right. I'm imagining, let's say July 7th, August 7th, something like that. I want to reach out to the council. I'm asking the council, just as I did last year, we, the institution, did last year, all right, to work throughout the summer. Last summer, it was every week. We're not going to do that again, but I do, if we've got courses, I want us to be able to respond to them as quickly and as well as possible. So
should I aim, I'm sorry to cut you off. So should I aim for like a week out from that, or 2 weeks out from that?
Yeah, I think a week out is enough time, because that'll give me time then to say, all right, here's what we have. Right, here's the order in which we'll meet it. You give council time to look at the course outlines or outlines. As I say, I know we've got 2 already. All right, so I'm hoping that we'll meet once in June. Right, so maybe. But beyond that, I can't say. Part of it is because I'm trying to be real. The council has done extraordinary work. All right, and without hesitation. At the same time, it is also the time when they're working on new courses, course redevelopment, and scholarship. So I'm just trying to be careful with their time.
Okay,
Good.
thank you, everyone. We're going to have to shut down this session so that the video can get rendering in the background so we can get it uploaded. Our next session start in about 8 minutes.
John, thank you very, very much.
Thank
And
you.
thank you all for attending. and
Sorry about the
committing to this
URL issue.
category.
Thank you.
Thank you.